Hello. So I have a confession to make. When TikTok first started gaining traction, I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't want to be on camera. I thought it made me feel nervous. I thought it was cringe. I didn't have the time to get into TikTok. And frankly, I don't feel like I had the skills. I didn't know anything about video editing, and I didn't have the patience to learn. But I knew that TikTok was going to be the next big social media thing, and so I sucked it up and I got into it. And now it is probably the most successful social media platform that we use. So I'm here today to chat to you about tackling TikTok and to tell you that it's not as scary as you think. So let's get into it. Woo! So a little bit about me before we get started. My name is Natasha Evette. I'm at Firefly Studios, and we make RTS games. I've been there since 2019. RTS games are, well, it's the Stronghold series, namely. It's a bit niche, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by saying, who's heard of Stronghold? Oh, one guy, there we go. So my job there is community lead / narrative lead. You might be thinking, hey, that sounds like a big workload. And yes, it is. But if anything, that makes me more qualified to talk to you today as indie devs about managing a social media platform when you already don't have enough time to do it. So I started our TikTok account in 2021, and since then I've posted just over 100 TikToks, so averages out at around 2 a month. Since then, we've amassed over 14 million views and nearly 40K followers. And to put that into perspective, I've been managing the social media at Firefly Studios for 5 years, and I still haven't hit 10K followers on Twitter. So there you go. So hopefully you've already seen case studies on TikTok, and you know it's a good way to get your game discovered and to get it out there. So I don't have to blag too much about all that nonsense. You're already here. So, but I'll give you a quick little case study. And for us, it was Stronghold Definitive Edition. Now, Stronghold Definitive Edition was a remaster of a 20-year-old game. And we announced it in July last year, and we released it in November. And in that time, I got 7 million views on our TikToks. I really went hard on it for that particular period of time. And we sold over 100,000 copies of the game in under 72 hours. So it was probably one of our most successful launches that we've ever had at Firefly. So how did we do it, and what do we do? So a little bit of housekeeping just before we get into it. Everything I'm going to say is not a hard list of set rules that you absolutely have to follow. TikTok is flexible. So just because I say don't do this or you must do that doesn't mean it's 100% you must never do that or you must 100% always do that. Especially if you're someone who's going to be posting 5-6 times a week. If you're posting that often, man, do whatever you want. Whatever feels right for you. You don't have to listen to every single hard set rule here. It really is just meant to be more of a guideline towards devs who are just getting started with TikTok, or people who are struggling to build their audience, or people like me who didn't have a lot of time to dedicate towards it. And finally, it's important to remember that the content du jour will change. That's a terrible note I've written there, good Lord. So what is popular / true might not be in the future. So if you're watching this for the cameras, or if you're looking at these slides a year from now, you might be thinking, oh, well, Natasha says this. No, might not be true anymore, so sorry. Right, so next we want to talk about equipment. I'll go through this super quickly, because hopefully you don't all need to know this. But so for me, I use CapCut to get into TikTok. It is free, it's no faff, it's easy to use. As someone who's a complete idiot when it comes to video editing software, I was able to use this, so I do recommend it. And then I recommend a microphone. I wouldn't recommend recording your voice on TikToks on your phone microphone. It's just not going to be good. It always does a little pop. It always sounds a bit raspy, a bit weird. I just wouldn't recommend it. You can get really cheap ones off of Amazon. You see people with Yeah, lapel ones, or like iPhone mics that come, and you see people with TikToks holding them right up to their mouth. They're very good. You can get little teeny weeny microphones like this, but much smaller. Anyway. And then the next thing I recommend is Audacity, which is free voice sound editing software. It's really easy to use. I say all this is really easy to use. I was tearing my hair out when I was first using it, but I swear after the first few you get used to it and it's not so dramatic. And another important note is that when possible, use the in-app text features, use their sounds and their effects, which is what they call filters essentially. So it might be very tempting when you're editing a video in CapCut to use their text feature and put the text on the video so then you don't have to download it to your phone and upload it to TikTok. But try not to do that. And this all comes down to SEO, which we'll get into later because SEO is so boring, but it's necessary. So let's get down to the content do's and don'ts. Number one, do show your game. So you might be looking at me thinking, why is this idiot telling me to show me the game? Like, of course that's what I'm here for. I want to put my game on TikTok. Well, you would be surprised at the amount of people who are using TikTok, game dev studios, game dev marketers who are not showing their game. They'll do almost anything else a lot of the time. So you'll see people doing game dev advice, game dev memes. They'll do a life in the day of a game dev where they're like, oh, I wake up in the morning and then I feed my cat and then I go to the gym. And then they'll set up a camera while they're at their desk and they'll do a time lapse for 8 hours. A lot of this is great personal account content, like really, I would be watching that, that's my jam, but I'm a game dev. So what you want to be thinking about is what consumers, players want to be watching. And that brings me to my second point, which is don't worry about being on camera. So a lot of games devs that I speak to about making TikToks, they say, oh, I can't do it, man. I can't do that cringe, hi, hello, and talking to themselves on a camera. And they think, that's not for me. Oh, I can't do it. Well, I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do it at all. And I would actually recommend that most people don't do it. I mean, again, this is all saying, like, if you're posting infrequently, if you're posting 6 times a week, you can do whatever you like. But I'll go into the reasons of why I don't think we should be worrying about being a presenter on camera. So the first reason is parasocial nonsense. So people get weird and people get mean on the internet. So you want to be really careful about what you are showing of yourself to an unknown internet audience. You're giving information about yourself, your life, and you want to think about the fact, I know it's depressing, but you have to think about if you were to leave the company on bad terms, then your face is up there representing them forever. The second point is consumers want to see the product, not you. Wonderful and beautiful as we all are. They want to see the game. They want to see what they're supporting, what you're making. I can't think of a single Stronghold player that wants to see what I had for breakfast. Maybe a couple, I don't know. Point 3, don't compete with your game. It's kind of an important one, right? So the UI on TikTok takes up, I don't know why I'm showing you my phone as if that's showing you anything. But the UI on TikTok takes up a huge amount of space on your phone screen. It's UI down the side, down the bottom, sometimes at the top. If you're responding to a comment, the comment appears on screen as well. That's also taking up space. And then if you want to put your face on the screen as well, that's taking up more space. It's more space that people aren't seeing of your game. And then the fourth point, sounds a bit mean, but we're not interesting enough. There's a reason why when you're watching TikToks, you see people telling a story while they're putting on their makeup, or they're making a smoothie, or they're doing something else interactive. It's because people who are using TikTok have short attention spans. There needs to be constant movement for people to be really engaged and watch and stay at the end of the video, which is ultimately what you're trying to do. So yes, show you some strange examples of TikToks that I've done. So this one bombed hard. I've got a bunch of these. I tried the face thing for a while. It did terribly. I would play it for you, but it's nonsense, so there's no point. The middle one is just a picture I took. It's not actually a TikTok I made. This one's okay because, again, the majority of the screen is the game, but you have to think about, oh sorry, I should be moving when I've got the microphone on, but this is all UI and this is all UI, and then there's stuff at the top here as well. So you want to be careful about how much your face is taking up of the screen. And then the last one is a double thumbs up, woohoo. So that's is all game. You're using the text features for the SEO, and I was using my voice. So I was doing a very energetic VO for that TikTok. I'd play it, but honestly, it's not that interesting. Right, Point 2. Sorry, I'm gonna have some water. Right, point 2. Again, might seem like an obvious one, do use the app. But you'd be amazed at the amount of game devs I talk to who have absolutely zero interest in using social media, never mind TikTok. I'm sorry to say that if you do want to market your game on social media, and especially on TikTok, you do have to be using these apps. I'm not saying get addicted, I'm not saying using them like 20 hours every day, but you do have to be aware of what's trending, what's funny, how are people speaking to each other, how are they interacting, just to be able to use it as a sensible marketing tool. And the second point, I've said don't confuse the cultures, is just really a way for me to address cross-posting. Now, cross-posting, I hear a lot of advocating for it, and that's, yeah, I'm a fan of it as well. So you want to be thinking about cross-posting to Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. But the issue with that is that not all the cultures across these different short-form medias are not always the same. What's funny on TikTok might bomb hard on YouTube Shorts. So you have to be thinking about what sounds are trending on TikTok may not be very funny there. But if you're just doing like serious posts, you can absolutely cross-post them. I don't think there's any harm in cross-posting it in general, unless you already have a very hardcore audience on YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, and you're worried you might alienate them. But I would imagine that you'd be going to TikTok first in most cases. Do I have anything else to say here? No. All right. Point 3. Use screen capture software. I do see a lot of TikToks on the indie dev side of things where someone is recording their monitor with their phone. Again, with every point that I'm making, this is fine if you're posting a lot, but if you're posting infrequently, you have to be thinking about what the bulk of your content is. And I see a lot of people who are, the bulk of their content is them recording their monitor from their phone. It crosses a line from authentic into amateur kind of quickly, so you do have to be kind of careful about what you're doing. You want to be using a screen recording software to capture your game. And on the other side of things, you want to be remembering aspect ratios. I'll show you an example here. Oh, yeah. These are again all my examples. Except the last one, that's Devolver. But yes, so I made a bunch of these. Disaster zone, what's happening here? These big blank spaces, what a mess, horrible, did terribly in the views. When you have a video, you want to be zooming in, making sure the screen capture of the video is taking up the entire space of the screen. And if it doesn't fit, what you want to be doing is, so you can have that and then duplicate the video, put it behind and blur it, like the last 2 images there. So that way it's still taking up all that space of the screen and everyone's little, short attention span brains are still activated. Because this, they're scrolling away from that fast. Alright, next slide. Run your account like a fan. This point is all about making sure your account isn't 100% dedicated to the hard sell. Yes, that's why you're here, you want to sell more copies of your games, but TikTok users don't really love a hard advertisement all the time. Well, they don't love it at all, but sometimes you have to, when you're releasing a trailer or something, that just is what it is, it's a hard sell. But try to find a way to think about your game the way a fan would, be approachable, be a part of your own fan base. You have to make fun of your characters, your own bugs, follow fan accounts of your game or follow fan accounts of the genre to get a vibe of what they're making fun of. Be casual and have fun with it when you can. I'm not saying you have to always be memes, but yeah, some memes are good. That being said, don't try and cram your game into a meme that doesn't necessarily work for it. Just because a meme is trending doesn't mean you have to use it. TikTok is essentially nothing but memes. So if you see one, you're like, oh God, how am I gonna fit my RTS game into this? I don't know. Skip it, man. There's like 1,000 memes on TikTok a day. Like, it's so not important. Come back to it. Next. Sorry, am I talking too fast? I feel like I'm talking insanely fast. Okay, good. The next point. So let's touch on sound first. Strangely enough, I do see a lot of silent game dev TikToks, and I don't know why. It really is important that you include some kind of sound. Whether you're using your voice, and if you are using your voice, it's important to pay attention to the quality of it. I don't just mean you must have a delightful sounding voice, but think about how much you're saying and ah, if you're taking big breaths and you can hear that through the mic, you know, you're going to want to try and edit those out with Audacity, like I mentioned at the start. If you don't like the sound of your own voice, ask a mate or ask someone else on your team if they'll read out a little blurb for you. Again, TikToks are short, so you don't need to have someone read a whole 10-minute diatribe. So is that the right word? Anyway. And then of course, TikTok has AI voices as well, which are a meme in and of themselves. So you can use those. I think they have a cap on, what do you call it? Sorry. Follower count, yes. So when you have a certain amount of followers, AI voices are shut off to you. I think it might be over 10 or 20,000, but you can worry about that later. And this brings me to mind your words. This is a broad point, so I'm sorry, but here we go. Right, so when it comes to TikTok, you want to be using subtitles. TikTok already has an inbuilt subtitle feature, so you don't have to worry about typing them all out. That's not a thing. The AI will do it all for you, but a lot of people, as I'm contradicting myself by saying, always have music, always have sound, a lot of people are watching TikToks on mute. So you do want to make sure you have subtitles, and also it's not everyone's first language, English, so you want to make sure that people can read it in case they're not understanding your accent, etc., etc. You want to watch swearing, etc. So it's not just about, you know, swear words, it's about other certain words like murder, death, suicide. I have no hard data of this, but it's somewhat of an accepted belief amongst TikTok users that using these words will affect your visibility. Again, I have no hard data on this, but it's why you'll see a lot of people on TikTok using words like unalive instead of suicide, and other grim examples like that. Sorry, I couldn't think of anything more cheerful. But that's the point I'm making. So I once made a TikTok about, I mean, our game is all about death and murder, so it's not, it's a rough going out there. But there was one I tried to make and I was like, oh, you want to play Stronghold? It's a nice cozy game, but with death and murder. And, you know, and of course the views were terrible on it because of certain words that were used. Well, I'm saying because of, again, I don't have any hard proof of this, but it's a widely accepted belief. That leads me to SEO. SEO does exist on TikTok. You might think for a video app that's not quite the case, but you'd be wrong. So SEO exists in your video description, and your hashtags, and your on-screen text, and your subtitles. Make sure you're getting some of those keywords in so that it's being picked up by the app. A lot of people use TikTok like a search engine, so you want to be making sure that those words are really there so people can find what they're looking for. You don't want to overload your TikTok with text. A lot of the time, not a lot of the time, I'm using that word a lot. A lot of the time, I'm using the word a lot of the time. I'll see TikToks that are just a pure blanket of text. If someone has to pause to read, more often than not, they're just gonna swipe to the next thing. So even though you can have bits of text on your screen, you don't want an entire paragraph on there. Don't give people a reason to swipe away. And the last point is encourage conversation. You want to be able to invite comments, invite people to interact with the content that you're making, just to get more visibility, essentially. Right, that's point number 5. Point number 6 is pretty simple. You don't need to worry about making tons of super original content. Follow as many game dev accounts as you can, follow their lead and be inspired by them, aka copy them. Especially when you don't have a lot of time to dedicate to it. If you're an indie dev and you're doing the coding and the designing and everything else, by all means, I'm going to give you a list of good accounts at the end, well, accounts that I like. Follow them, follow everyone that they follow, and then you're going to have an absolutely massive list of game dev accounts to be inspired by. And then don't worry about spending too much time creating TikToks. I'll show you an example if I can. Let's see if I can make this work.
Roxanne, but it's just rocks. Rocks!
no, that's pretty much it. It's just rocks. This took so long to make. Such a stupid amount of time. I thought it'd be incredibly fun. That's a scary face. I thought it'd be incredibly funny, and it took so long to make, and it only got 30k views in the end. Maybe not even 28k. That sounds good now, but that took a long time to trickle to that. That's been out for ages before it got to that. And it took so long. And then when it did so poorly, I was so miserable about it because I thought it was the best idea I'd ever had. Meanwhile, I did... That took me 5 seconds to make. 5 seconds. Do you want to guess how many views it has? Over 200,000. 200,000, and it's just my stupid face on one of our characters. So yeah, 220k views on something that took 5 seconds to make, versus something that took easily a week with these stupid rocks, because I thought it was hilarious, and 28k views, and it was at 5k views for such a long time. So don't worry about spending hundreds of time making these, because it's only going to be depressing if it doesn't work out, and frankly, you don't need to. Oh, sorry, my mic is falling off. So yeah, that brings me to that point. That finishes that point, rather. Okay, this is our last point. You're gonna want to be quick in everything. This is another bit of a broad one, so I'll try and explain it as best I can. So you want to jump onto trends sooner rather than later. You want your video content to move. You don't want it to be static images. If it can be quick and snappy, then even better. But if your game isn't quick or snappy, then don't worry about it. So if your game is about nature, and you don't have any like huge action shots that you can show, then show like the trees swaying in the wind, but maybe speed it up a bit and maybe show lots of trees rather than just one very long static image of a tree. You'd think that sounds super obvious, but you'd be surprised. I'm not joking. You don't want to linger too long at a single shot. I would say less than 5 seconds generally. Yeah, 5 seconds is the absolute max for a single shot before I would switch it, which sounds mad, but it's TikTok. And lastly, this is a bit of a depressing point, but despite all of your very hard work in creating all these excellent TikToks and everything that you've learned or will continue to learn about TikTok, very, very few people who will watch the TikTok all the way to the end. The percentage of people who watch TikTok all the way to the very end are depressingly low. So if you do have a CTA to put into a TikTok, include it early, sooner rather than later. And a CTA can be as little as the game name and where to buy it. Because a lot of people aren't using links in TikTok or going to your link tree or going to your bio. So you just want to make sure the name is clear and where you can get it. I generally try to put Stronghold DE now on Steam within the first 3 seconds. If not, keep it on the screen for the entire time. Yeah, and I think that is us. These are the accounts that I recommend you follow. You don't have to worry about taking pictures if you can't be bothered. Reach out to me. I'll give you all the information, all the slides that you want. I'll give you this whole script if you are mad enough to want this. And just follow everyone that they follow. I've obviously plugged ourselves there, sorry. But yeah, you'll learn a lot from these guys. And that's it.
Absolutely. We have time for one, maybe 2 questions. So put your hand up really fast if you want to ask any questions.
And everyone wants the beer. Oh.
That's true. If you have more than one thing to do a TikTok about, like, how should you manage that? Like, let's say you have more than one game.
So if you have more than one game that you want to post about on TikTok, post whenever you want, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter that there's no succession. Publishers have TikToks and they do very well, and they're always about different games each time. Just make it clear which game it is that you're showing and where they can buy it, and that should be good enough.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Natasha. Round of applause for Natasha.